Becoming a successful professional speaker is a journey. How do you find that first stage, the next stage, and then the bigger and better stages? I'm Lee Hayes, your host. My co-hosts and I are here to guide you to a more successful speaking career. You're listening to Path to the Main Stage podcast. Hey everybody, I'm going to bring you a little bit of the tropics today because my co-host today is Darren Virassammy, and he's in Barbados. So anyone who's not having great weather today, blame Darren. He has it all down there. So we'll start out just by saying welcome to the show. Thanks for joining from across the ocean.
Thank you so much, Lee. It's really a pleasure to be here. And
Well,
yes, we're having great weather here.
Do you ever not have great weather other than maybe like a hurricane? Is it ever not nice there?
It is, because in the rainy season, in hurricane season, when it is raining and it's coming down, it can flood up really, really fast, and the rains can be pretty astronomical. So yeah, and in that season too, it gets very, very hot and humid. So
Okay, so we'll only be jealous now, but you have bad weather too.
yes, we do.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so now, Darren, I know you are a consultant with the Prosper Group. You are also a consultant in corporate situations with leadership and culture. And one thing I'd like to bring up as a speaker, you've done a good amount of speaking on your own besides also doing it through companies. But the one notable thing is your TEDx talk. You did a talk called Distinctive by Nature and Why Nature Makes Us Better, and we'll certainly touch on that today. But just to anybody who's done a TEDx, it's had over 1 million views. That is really impressive for a TEDx. But maybe in today's day and age, we need a little bit of nature. Maybe we need to reconnect.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. It's just getting outside and getting to spend a little time in nature creates just kind of a reset. What I always like to say, and there's actually science that's out there about this, but as little as 2 hours, just over 2 hours per week, so that's a little over 20 minutes per day, doesn't even have to be broken down daily, is a really powerful biological reset for our human operating system. I think that's the part that we forget. We got all these operating systems, we got technology, calendars being guided, our phones are beeping. Amazing. Huge fan of technology I am. Here we are talking across the miles, as you announced here, and we're doing that with a Wi-Fi connection and electricity. But for our human operating system, getting reconnected, regrounded in nature in some way is kind of like when you go on a long drive and you got bug splatter on your windshield, Lee. Sometimes we need to clear it off, and so we could see a little bit clearer. That's all it is. And when I say nature, I don't mean that you have to go into the forest if you live in a big city or something. I'm talking about maybe sometimes go outside. If you're in the middle of New York City, I've interviewed folks and they've told me they live in the big city and they will go outside, take a walk for 20 minutes. They'll be in the middle of the concrete jungle, but they'll look up in the sky. They won't have their device on them and just take in the fresh air. See what your other senses take in. And it can be a powerful recalibration and reset.
Well, I can only imagine, having been in Manhattan. I know when you walk into Central Park, I mean, definitely the concrete jungle is still something, but you walk into Central Park and once you've gone in like 50 feet, suddenly there's a hush and there's a different feeling and you can just relax.
Exactly. You totally can. And there's ways to find it and access nature that it doesn't involve you, going into the forest, going out to the beach. There's little areas that we can find it. You see a plant growing in the middle of a city, a little tree. Take a moment with that. Look up at the sky and see what's going on up there, and it can be real powerful for clarifying things.
Now, you've talked about nature and speaking. Maybe we can just transition over to that. You've talked about different experiences you've had and some crazy things. I love you've done some really crazy things. But how can speakers use nature to become better speakers?
Yeah, I love that question, Lee. So I'll start with the less crazy things that I've done in preparing for talks. So one of the things that I did in preparing for my TEDx talk and for several after that is I would actually go outside and deliver it outside. Sometimes I would take a hike somewhere where I could be kind of off the beaten path, and I would deliver the talk to a river or to a tree or something. It creates these memories for us of delivering outside, which can be pleasant. There can also be really unexpected things that we can't control for. So if we're delivering at home, right, or we're delivering in our office and everything is perfect, the temperature is perfect, the lighting's perfect, when you're on stage and something shifts, something doesn't go the way that you want it to do, whether there's a light that goes out, there's a squeak on the stage, somebody's cell phone goes off, you move one way and then you have a muscle cramp, which is something that's actually happened to me in front of thousands of people. And I was like, oh, okay, let's see how I get through this. And Cadence, my point is, being outside in nature, if you decide to go take a walk and deliver it, it will create these unexpected distractions that you have no control over. The temperature will be different. You practice in these different various environments. And then there's comfort with the uncomfortable. So when that cell phone goes off, when there's a distraction, it's easier to actually stay the course. And you have an anchor of, okay, I got distracted. Somebody's cell phone went off. You know what? I'm going to remember. The parallel to that is going to be when that bird just flew by and was chasing a rabbit in front of me, or something like that, that comes there. And I kept going. I took a breath, took a pause, and moved on. That's a powerful way of doing it. I don't know if you want me to get into the crazier stuff that I've done.
You know what? I want to hear one crazy, because I know you've done some crazy things. So for people who are like, oh, I was talking to a tree, that's crazy. No. That's not crazy.
Yeah. That's not the crazy stuff. That again, that grounds us. So let me lead by saying I used to teach at a local college in the Sacramento area when I was living there. And one of my students, he would always say, practice hard, play easy. And it resonated with me. And that was something that stuck. When I was preparing for my TEDx talk, I was in Santa Cruz a few weeks before. And I needed to get some preparation, and it was my daughter's birthday, and it was also our wedding anniversary. My daughter was born on our second wedding anniversary. So I was getting up early to make sure that I could maximize time with the family, but I'd get up early. And one of the things that I did multiple days was I went out to the ocean, jumped in the water at 6 o'clock in the morning in just swim trunks, no wetsuit, no nothing. And that water is not overly warm on the central coast of California. I'm a cold water weirdo. I do all that stuff. And I just spent an hour in that water with the waves coming at me, uncomfortable, at first teeth chattering, but breathing through it, delivering the speech. Not exactly the most comfortable environment, but by the time I delivered the talk 2, 3, 4 times, I'm breathing through it. I'm okay. My body is feeling all these other things that are telling me not to focus on giving the talk. And you know what? I was able to get the talk. So the first one was just checking the box of getting the talk out. By the second, third, fourth times, I was able to actually work deeply on the cadence when my body was in a state that it definitely wouldn't be in on the day of the talk. And it's very memorable for sure. And in delivering it, I also, this is outside of nature, I also tried to deliver different talks, especially higher profile ones, deliver it when I'm exhausted, right? So I remember once I was right after a red eye flight, I was practicing it in the morning, completely gassed, knowing that I had time. I was going to have plenty of time to rest and sleep before this. So this was just in the practice mode. And I had a red eye flight going to something else. I put in reps on the talk, exhausted, cognitively not there, because the day of was going to feel like a dream, because it wasn't going to be nearly as difficult as those pieces. So
I think that's an amazing idea, and I never thought of it that way, because I have, kids who are in sports and everything, but I love the concept of practice hard, game easy, or whatnot, where you You've done the tough stuff. But what if not everyone's as tough as you are? And I think you should do tough things, but what if they're not? You talked once about like speaking to a stuffed animal. How does that help you? Okay, and it sounds a little tamer.
It's far more tame. So the stuffed animals, what I would do, okay, and this again creates conditions and environments for in the moment of the talk. Everything that I'm doing, preparing for talk, or when I've been in the room as a trainer facilitating different elements of that, create memories and anchors that in the moment with the snap of a finger, that's what I can see. I can close my eyes, take a breath on stage, giving the room a little space to take a breath as well. It's okay to have those little pauses, right? And when I do that, I can see the moments of my preparation and go right back there, and it's literally a reset button. So the stuffed animals story, what I've been notorious for, and my family knows this because I'll come home and they'll be like, oh, all the stuffed animals are gone, or they're somewhere. I will stack them in a room at different places. Mm-hmm. So I have to move my eyes, make eye contact with the stuffed animals, talk and deliver to them. And I find the happiest, smiliest stuffed animals, bunnies, bears, tigers, anything that I can see that is there. Best audience ever, Lee. They are just happy and fully engaged. No matter what time of day I do it, anytime, they're just there. Guess what that does?
I love the way you use the whole room that way, because in the beginning, I see some speakers who sort of fixate on one spot because they're just trying to get the words out. And I can see that if you have Winnie the Pooh over here and, whatever over there. And it's just, got to say, all right, not exactly a stuffed animal, but Dobby is here. Not to talk to me because he was a gift. But I can see if you have different things in different places. I love the way you're making eye contact and traveling around the room.
And that's what it's practicing. So it's a lot of, one of the themes that we're getting at here, I'll go directly at it, is the physiology of preparing for speaking. That's some of the stuff that I will do that are, that will make sure that our bodies are aware of where do I need to focus? What do I need to do? Of course, we have to work on our cadence, our pauses, the delivery, the tone, intonation, all those sorts of things. I've learned a lot of that from playing music over the years as well, right? So that's been where I've conditioned a lot of that. One of the things about the stuffed animals, though, when I've been in a talk or I'm facilitating in front of a group and, it could be more of a challenging group. When I take that breath, when I blink my eyes, guess what I see? I'm just reminding, you're all a bunch of stuffed animals. I can see the teddy bear, my favorite bear. So in that moment, I can, again, snap the fingers and I'm right back to that. And I can see everybody as that smiling teddy bear. I can replace that mentally. So it's a little bit of a visualization process, but you have to create the anchor so you can visualize when you're there and you don't get derailed. At least that's the kind of stuff that I've gotten into that's been massively beneficial for me.
Well, you sometimes hear people say, oh, if you get nervous, think about everybody naked.
Yeah.
I can see that, especially depending on who's sitting in front of you, could be a little shocking and unpleasant. And I love the idea of it being much more pleasant to go, you know what? No, it's not the big old unattractive snarling guy who's just glaring at you.
Yep.
It's your happy bear. I think that's a much nicer way to release your anxiety and continue on. But you just talked about anchors. You said I have certain anchors that I go back to. I can close my eyes and go back to that. Other than stuffed animals, can you give me specific techniques of using anchors that you do?
So that's a great question. So there's some of the anchors that I'll use. I'll talk about the preparation leading in. Mm-hmm. One of the anchors that I think is critical that can get overlooked in speaking is find parallel things that get you into flow state really, really quickly. If you enjoy coloring or drawing, you're like, but that doesn't have anything to do with speaking. Does it get your brain mentally, again, the bug splatter cleared off so you're in flow? Do you do that really well, and can you get there fast? For me, I'm a bassist, I'm a musician. Playing music has been for decades the fastest way for me to transition into flow state. And when I mean I'm in flow state, it means I can move through different situations, comfort, discomfort, because I've had years of repetition, not only, sitting in my room doing it, but playing publicly on stages. I pretty much gig every week, predominantly right now. And those scenarios get me into flow state. Playing music is an anchor that I actually do in parallel when I'm leading up to a talk, because I spend more time in flow state. I don't need to go play for 3 hours a day or anything. But a great example of this is leading into my TED talk. I have a little traveler bass, a tiny little small acoustic one, and it goes with me typically if I have talks to deliver. The hour and a half before my talk, there was a room upstairs at the TED event. And there was a lot of other rooms where many speakers many were putting in the last reps on their talk. And I was like, if I don't know it by now, I'm not going to know it. And I'm going to remove some of the edge that comes out when you have some space between delivering it. So it can sound too rehearsed at that point. I put in the work by that point. I had my bass with me and I was just playing. I was playing stuff that I knew. I was just experimenting. And what it was doing was warming up the same portions of my brain that I would need on stage if I tripped over a talk line that I had written, right? Because for a TEDx, there's a lot that points towards the power of writing your talk, which up until that point I had never done before. But flow is an anchor for me, and doing things the day of or leading up to it creates anchors that I know, again, on the physiology of speaking, are going to help best set me up to be at my best no matter what comes at me. One of the other things in there as an anchor is just knowing your foods, right? Like what foods go well with you, what don't. Should you eat, should you not eat? I remember one of my earlier experiences, not with speaking, but facilitating. I had a 2-day facilitation I was doing with a colleague, and I remember the morning I had a coffee. I had a milk, like latte or something with just regular milk in it, something that I regularly get. An hour later, I'm presenting and I'm having issues in my throat. And I'd never really had that before, and I didn't even think about it. And it was like, okay, lesson learned. And these are the little things that start unwinding our own focus from the talk. They seem like they're little things, but I try to stress those little details so those little details don't become big issues when it's game time. And those to me are anchors of protecting those areas, of controlling for what you can going into it. So then when you're on stage, you can be more in flow state and work with what you got. And when there's unexpected, you're actually better prepared to walk through those.
Okay. And you had mentioned the difference between the script, right? Your written talk and actually delivering the talk. How do you make that transition? Because when you're writing the words, they're just different than when you speak the words.
100%. So let me back in to that answer by sharing a story about John Bates, who was a guest on this podcast previously. And we both know him quite well. I've shared the stage with him. He was my speaker coach for my TEDx talk. And we'd known each other. We'd been on stage together. And the reason I hired him, I was already leaning towards it. And then he told me, he said, Darren, I've seen you give a talk. And that's why your TEDx is going to suck. Straight up told me that. And I said, what, John? That's tell me more. My ego was.
How do you feel?
Like, tell me more about that. Like, if you of your caliber are telling me that, I'm going to listen. He said, well, delivering a TED talk is going to be different in the fact that I'm going to actually recommend that you write your talk. And because you have 18 minutes to deliver this talk, you really need to do the work to get your points across. And there's a lot of stuff that you might think you need to say that are only a part of your story, but they actually destroy your point. And your audience is not actually the audience that's in front of you. So getting back to the importance of scripting the talk and what takes place when you're writing versus delivering. When you read something, and you're reading it, it might read one way. When you're delivering it, you might stumble over the words. Somebody else might deliver those words better, but in your cadence, in your voice, in your intonation, you might stumble over some of those words. So you're going to want to make adjustments to it, and putting in the reps over time of delivering it lots of times and reworking the subtleties becomes absolutely critical. And doing the reps of making that happen, it also gets us a lot clearer, especially if you're on a time component. What is the essence of what I need to say? Does this keep me in line with the essence of that, or is it distracting? Do I need to do what they say in Hollywood, kill some darlings, kill my darlings, because they're my darlings, but they're not actually benefiting the talk. They were important for me to get to where I am personally as the speaker, to tell the story, but it's actually highly distracting to the audience. And the talk is never about you as the speaker. It's about the audience and leaving them with something that can resonate with them. And if I get too caught up in my own hubris of what it did for me, I can actually lose the bigger point that needs to be made that I want to land with my audience.
You keep talking about reps and how important it is, right, to hear it, to listen. But earlier you said, but you don't want to sound mechanical. At what point or what was that process for you? When do reps help you? And at what point do you break through sort of the mechanism of speaking and become natural again? Because I'm sure that there's, you sound very robotic for a while, trying to get it right. And what is that process of going from reps to breaking through and sounding like there's a natural flow?
Yeah, I didn't fully understand that process. Again, I really have to tip my hat to John, because he broke that out for me. He was the one that was able to make that very, very clear for me, that you will go through a place of where you understand the talk, you can deliver it. It's feeling like you're getting it out. It's kind of robotic in nature. And then you start to put some character into it, but it's practiced. So you're adding that back in, you're adding your voice back in, but it's really, you're in a place of when you're adding your voice back in, you're still practicing it, because you're still building the bridge between making sure you're getting it out, making sure it's hitting the time lines that you're looking at, and then you're trying to add your feeling back into it. And the interesting part is many speakers stop when they've gotten to the point of right kind of in that valley before it starts to become natural again. So it feels to the audience rehearsed. Like, oh, okay, I've got the talk down. Now I'm intentionally putting this pause here, right? But it feels scripted, practiced, those elements. And then we move through an arc where it breaks from that, and we're just playing and flowing. So think of it like this, Lee. If for the speakers, for if people that maybe just trying to be developing their strength in talking, but aren't even getting to the main stage, but are just trying to understand how to be a better speaker. If we see a live performance of musicians, right? There's something different about seeing and feeling and hearing the music. If there's a group of musicians, if you go to a rock concert and then the rock band, right, or the funk band is playing, and they're just playing and they're not reading the music, right? They're not there reading it. They can play and you just feel it very, very differently because the music is in them. That tune is in them. they could play the same thing. This literally happened to me on Saturday. I had a show on Saturday, and there was a tune that was called, we had an artist that sat in with us and whatnot. And it was incredible. He called some tunes. We all didn't have it quite down. We were sight reading, and we knew we could pull it off. It was good, but the audience doesn't feel it the same way. We can create the right sound, and we can create the feel, but there's a whole different level when you see a speaker or a musician or a comedian or anybody that is really using that portion of their mind, body, and brain to really connect, that is just missing. And people can start to see that, as especially those that know your cadence of how you speak regularly. And there's going to be some of those people that you're going to want to take direct feedback from.
Now, you had also talked before about getting the main idea across, whether it's a TEDx, whether it's a keynote. You had talked about like the block or the hook. What is that, and where does that come in, and how do you support it?
Let me lead by giving just a shout out to a book that was very profound in helping me through that, and to an author that I think does this incredibly well. His name's Jamie Mustard. A dear friend of mine. I've worked with him on different projects and stuff, and he wrote, his first book was called The Iconist, and it talks about basically creating these block statements. And it's not about it's about the art and science of creating these block statements, these anchors, these different things, and how brands do it, but then how we can do it as people and in society. I think it gives some very, very insightful perspectives on what that actually means. And when we think of a block statement, something that everybody seems to know from the speaking world is the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King. I have a dream is the anchor that he keeps coming back to. It's kind of like a tag within music, where you hear it, you hear Bob Marley's tune, No Woman, No Cry. No woman, no cry. That's kind of the hook, and you just know that, and it's there, and it becomes a repeat. Well, guess what? In speaking, we're musical in nature, but even without that, you can have that through line. If there's a key question that you're stating, or there's a key idea that's there, you repeat it within it. You bring people back to that and remind them after you've made your points, after you've shared the data, after you've talked about the thing, you come back to that question. And then you have a thread, a through line that's flowing through the talk. And then you have to weave it together. There's a saying, I think in speaking, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. Right? And that's just an old school path that I've heard. I don't remember where I first heard that. But those little pieces, they're little repeats that get into there. And how you reveal that essence, if you are writing your talk out, it's harder. It's easier to just put bullet points together, free flow. And here's the little trick on that, Lee. The more time you have, the less you need to prepare, right? The less time that you have, you really have to be tight on getting your theme across. If you only have 10 minutes to get an idea, you're going to put a lot more time and repetition in to be ready for those 10 minutes. And, I got an hour. Oh, okay. I don't have to prep as much because I have more opportunities to, just free flow, as people will say, in different pieces. But that time, the more constraint the time is, the more that matters. And look, this is also leads to another point. If you're given a time, stick to the time. or do a little bit less than the time. If you're given 15 minutes, deliver the talk in 14 minutes and 30 seconds. Be prepared to do it. And if in your mind, if you have things where it gets condensed, what are your cut points? What are your cut points? And have those. I think that's a powerful thing that can get overlooked as well. What are your blocks? But are there sections that you can practice delivering where I have to remove this part, or I'm going to have to surgically slice this out, and be ready to do that, because sometimes those things happen at events. And you might be there and you might be one of the speakers. I was speaking once at, I was invited to speak at the Hitachi, it was the Global Women's Conference, actually, and it was in Las Vegas, and I was one of the speakers. And they had the big main stage at one of these big, massive hotels that was down there. Michio Kaku was there, and all of these iconic speakers from around the globe had flown in. And then they had specialized rooms that were breakouts. And there was still, 800 to 1,000 people that were in my session, right? Or maybe even more than that were coming to those. The main stage conversations ran a little bit longer, and you have to deal with that. And I can't sit there and get all rattled. Oh, why did that session go longer? They're holding me back, and my time's going to get clipped back. You got to roll with it. That's literally what you signed up for. And I had to make some adjustments. Thankfully, mine was a deck. It was a little bit of a talk and a little bit of engaging the audience in some activities. But I had to be prepared to go and cut. I had to remove probably about 8 to 10 minutes and do that as the clock was ticking and realizing the room was going to be a little bit delayed when people were coming in. But we had to make some pivots, and they were asking all the speakers to do. It wasn't just, oh, poor me, put on your big kid pants and suck it up, buttercup, and make the adjustments.
Well, you were ready because you had been in the ocean and the wave was coming and was going to hit you in the face.
That's right.
Like, and I need to get out now. Okay.
And these are the things I think that are really important, because you can get so anchored into the talk, the thing that you're going to deliver, and we can't see another way. And that's the question I always have, is what's your optionality? You might not love it in the moment, but how do you reset, turn the page, and move on from that? And that's a physiological experience that we're having. That's in our nervous system. What do we need to do to get ourselves reset emotionally back and turn the page on that? Because if not, that's going to bleed out on stage, and that's not going to be pretty.
And I think another piece of advice from the great John Bates, and anybody can go back, is that if you have your talk in blocks, you can delete a block, right? So if suddenly somebody says, oh, I had told you 30 minutes, it's actually 20. You can go, okay, we're going to leave out the second block. We're just going to do 1, 3, and 4, right? And you're ready. You're prepared. You've hit those waves. You've jumped over. You've been in the cold, and you do it. And just one little thing I want to point out, because while I'm finding I have a lot of listeners who are advanced speakers, and you guys just soak it all up. For those of you who are beginners, when Darren talks about say what you're going to say, then say it, and then tell them what you said, it doesn't literally mean, because I've seen speakers do that they bring up a slide that says what I'm going to talk about today, and then they go through their schedule. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. It's like a comedian, right? They don't get up and say, all right, I'm going to set the joke up for you, and then I'm going to give you the punchline, and then I'm going to close the book. No, they do it. You just do it. You just start talking about it, what you're going to talk about, and then you reiterate. But you don't say, today we're going to talk about. So just a little tip for my beginners out there.
Critical. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
Well, just because, again, when you're at your level, you understand that you're doing this creatively and smoothly. But I have seen new speakers that get out there and actually bring up an outline and say, here's our outline for today. This is what we're going to talk about. And I'm like, no. Don't do that. So, all right. Another thing I want to talk about is the audience. So you had talked about how you prepare for them. How do you know you've served them? How does the client benefit from your talk? How do you really serve them?
That's such a great question. I think that actually shows up, Lee, in the prep work. Okay. The talk is never about you as the speaker. It's about them. And how are we leaving the audience when we've delivered this talk? And it's not the mechanical process. It's about what are we doing to opening up some sort of thinking in them? What are we doing to create a connection with the audience? And the audience, just remember this, they're just individual people. I don't care if your audience is 10 people or 5,000 people, it's people. And you can, from stage, talk to them as individuals and say something that resonates, that stirs something in them. How do you do that? Well, it's not talking at them, it's talking to them. I try to think of it as, if I'm on stage, yes, I'm on stage. And I just happen to be having a conversation on stage. And some of that is, sometimes there will be a little bit of dialogue where we are asking things from the audience, depending on what your topic is, what you're getting into. But there's going to be other times that is not going to be the case. And I think it starts with understanding we're showing up to serve, showing up with the servant's heart, with the servant's mindset, to leave people with something that opens their eyes and their heart in a different way. Maybe that's with information that's shared. Maybe it's the question that they're being left with. Maybe that's your block statement throughout the whole talk. And you're not telling them what to think, but you're asking a question. You're showing some different information, and you're leaving them with thinking about this question. You know, in my TED Talk, I end by saying, you know, Jim Rohn said that we're the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. I ask you to consider, what if we're also the average of the 5 places where we spend the most time? That's going to awaken people and thinking just through a question. It's not, I'm telling you this is the right way or the wrong way. I'm just asking you to think about, where is that? What would that be? And then the deeper question that people often have come back to and said is, well, that makes me think about, is that in alignment with the person that I want to be, the person that I think that I am and pursuing, but how is that environment shaping me? So it's things like that you can get into that get people thinking in a very, very different way. And that's just one technique. I'm more of a question person, but there's so many other incredible techniques, and many of your other co-hosts have shared some of those.
Right, but it's like you said, it's thinking about the audience as many individuals, not a mass, right? You're speaking to each individual out there.
Yeah.
So
how are you making them feel? And look, I'm a bass player, right? People say you hear the music and you feel the bass. So my job, for decades of playing bass, I'm always reading from stage what's going on in the audience. And then sometimes I've been the one that subtly calls to, people don't know what the hell instrument I play. Oh, you're a guitarist. Yeah, no, I'm not a guitarist. I cannot play guitar very well. They don't know, right? But you're the one that is setting the foundation, that's getting people to shake their waist and whatever and move and groove. But I take that same tack from the speaker's lens is thinking about, okay, what am I taking in? What's moving? And this is interesting as well, that gets back to, what are my blocks that I can cut out, or what are the little subtle differences that I need to push a little bit harder on because of this audience, something that I've picked up from this audience. Maybe I need to camp here a little bit longer than I had thought. And I do have that space with the time that's allotted to me. And you have optionality within the talk to kind of figure out what's going to be the best way to get to the same point, but to individualize it, go through individualizing it to the audience within the talk. Because that same talk, if you delivered it, in a different area, you might have to push the button a little harder on other areas to make it resonate. That's part of knowing your audience.
Okay. Know your audience. Now, I'd love to wrap today's podcast with the same question that I always ask my co-hosts. And that is, you've been speaking for many years now. Mm-hmm. What would Darren today tell Darren who's having his first talk? What one thing would you tell him to focus on?
I would focus on just understanding that, get up there, deliver the talk. It's typically never as bad as you thought it was, and it's typically never as good as you thought it was either. And when when younger Darren starts to realize that and accepts that, to your point, you made this earlier, it's actually far more about the consistency of habits, right? That are going to continue to get you better and better. And you have to, we've talked about this, just put in the reps, keep putting in the reps. Don't focus on perfection. Focus on being just a little bit better today than you were yesterday. And that's what I would advise.
Well, that is great advice, and that's the advice we're going to leave everyone who's listening today. Put in the reps and just be a little bit better this time than you were last time. And you're going to keep climbing to the top if you just keep climbing one rung at a time. Thank you so much, Darren, for joining me on Path to the Main Stage podcast. Thank you everyone for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to Path to the Main Stage. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for full video episodes, check out YouTube. If you want to be a successful speaker, you need to make it happen. My co-hosts and I are here to help guide you. But if you need more help, please check out pathtothemainstage.com, where we can connect. And until next time, keep sharing your voice, keep showing up, and keep taking your path to the main stage.